Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Pandemic Livestream series. Last week we did a video on questions and answers. Today what I wanted to do was talk a little bit about the Segno, which is an illustration in Fior di Battalia's manuscript, Fior di Battaglia. The illustration of the Segno is a sign, which is what Segno means, that is a way for the author to impart information without using a lot of words. In medieval times, lots of information was passed on through pictures or architecture. A medieval style of artwork was in opposition. And what I mean by that is if you look at a mantelpiece, a medieval mantelpiece that has sculptures on it, quite often what you'll see is illustrations that are in opposition on either side of the mantelpiece. For instance, on this side, you might see the carving of a woman, and on this side, the carving of a man. On this side, the carving of an infant. On this side, the carving of an old person. Here, something from earth. Here, something from the heavens. So it works in opposition. If we take this to more of the Asian thought process, this is the European equivalent of yin and yang. So we have the two opposites that are always facing each other. Light and dark, good and evil, however you want to look at it. With the artwork in the manuscript, it was done quite often in the same way. When we look at the guards in the manuscript, they are faced in opposition to another guard. And so we see this occurring over and over again. Today, I want to look at the Segno. When we look at the Segno, this is not in front of the two-handed sword section. And when we look at the illustration of the swords, it's important to understand what kind of information the master is giving us. The words that he uses, the master with these 7 swords signify the 7 cuts of the blade. The 4 animals signify the 4 virtues, which are judgment, speed, strength, and courage. Whoever wants to be good in this art will know of these virtues. First thing I want to do is talk about the swords. In the two-handed sword section, Fior tells us that the trajectory of a fendente is from eye to knee, and a sottani is from knee to eye. But when we look at the swords in this illustration, they are not following that trajectory. What this tells us is that this is not the two-handed sword cutting pattern. This is actually closer to the one-handed sword cuts, not the two-handed sword cuts. So it's not that the two-handed sword cuts are coming in these angles, it's that these represent the one-hand sword. We have the 7 cuts, we have the descending, the ascending, and the horizontal. Now, if you look at the illustration, the descending runs right into the ascending. These are one and the same cut, whether I'm going up or down. And when you look close at the pictures of the quillins are not the same size. And that's important to understand because we are still seeing perspective within the artwork of this illustration. And this is telling us what edge we're going to be using, because the quillin that's shorter is further away from the artist. Now, the way I teach the Mazzana is that there are no horizontal cuts, because if I'm cutting with my sword horizontally, I have no protection over my knuckles. And it doesn't take much to break my fingers or make me lose my fingers so that I'm unable to grip my sword. So the Mazzana is on the same trajectory as the descending blows or ascending blows. So the Mazzana follows the same path as a Fendente or a Sotani. The difference between the Mazzana and the Fendente, or the Mazzana and the Sotani, is intent. If I'm cutting down at John and I'm throwing a Fendente, my goal is to cut from eye to knee and cut all the way down. However, if I hit him on the head, we know there's no way I'm going to cut all the way through his body. But my intent is to cut all the way through, even though I stop in long guard because his body, his skeleton got in the way. But if I'm throwing a Mazzana, I follow that same path, but my intent stops it in long guard, so I provide a threat or a cover for myself. But if I come in sideways, how much is it going to take for him to countercut my fingers? Whereas if I come in here, I'm able to protect myself with my quillins. Having had my fingers broken multiple times, I've learned to protect myself with my quillins. And I went through all that pain and that suffering, so you didn't need to. You're welcome. So learn from my injuries and learn how to protect yourself with your sword. It's not necessarily about just hitting the adversary. It's about not getting dead. So you need to be able to protect yourself with your sword as you're performing these actions. With that being said, when we look at these horizontal cuts here, they are cutting to the middle of the body. Don't look at where they're starting from, but look where they're stopping or where they're passing through. Just like the descending cuts pass through the middle of the body and continue to the ascending cuts, the Mazzana passes through the middle of the body and continues on the same line. But these are not on the same trajectory as the descending cuts. The question I like to ask with that is, why not? The illustration shows horizontal cuts. They should be horizontal, right? If they're on the same trajectory as the descending or the ascending blows, and you have one of those swords superimposed on the other sword, how are you ever going to see it? I believe the master had it drawn this way so you could see where the trajectory passes through, knowing that it's going to be on the same path to protect yourself. We see in the martial sport today, we see basically everybody's wearing armor. It's made of plastic or leather, but it's still armor. So it allows you to fight as if you're armored, which is entirely different than fighting unarmored. John and I have some videos on the YouTube channel where we're fighting unarmored, and there are repercussions for messing up. So you can't afford to, I did not do that to his finger. You can't afford to not protect yourself. So there's the 7 swords. We have the trajectory of descending, ascending, and also Mazzana half cuts. We can see the perspective on this sword. You'll notice the top quillin is shorter than the bottom quillin. That tells us the edge that he's using. And then the one coming straight up the middle is the punta, the thrust. So there's our 7 swords, and the way that I interpret these cuts to mean. Fior says for the Mazzana that they cut between the ear and the knee. I don't think that's a horizontal cut this way to the ear, to the shoulder, to the ribs, to the thigh. that doesn't make a lot of sense to me in having a way to perform an offensive action that also gains and develops your defense within that offensive action. Instead, I can throw a fendente mezzana and stop at the level of his ear, so I'm able to stop in the middle of his face. I can stop it at his throat, I can stop it at his breast, or I can stop it at his groin. I have the choice of where I stop my point. So that means I can throw my mezzana, cut with a mezzana between his ear and his knee. Not that I'm taking the trajectory of cutting flat to those places. Not if I want to keep my fingers, that is. So then that takes us into the animals. The first animal I want to talk about is the lynx. The lynx says, no creature sees better than the lynx, and it always understands and measures. The word above the lynx is avvisamento. And the word avvisamento in Italian, I want to backtrack just a little bit. There's a difference between the Italian manuscript at the Getty and the Latin manuscript, which is the Pisani Dasi. In the Getty version, the word above the lynx is avvisamento. The word in the Latin manuscript of the Pisani Dasi is prudencia. And they have the same connotations. And we can even see how they translate into our English that we use today. If I have avvisamento, I take things under advisement. And if I'm using the Latin manuscript of the Pisani Dasi, prudencia, I move with prudence. So I like to combine these two, the Getty and the Pisani Dasi. All actions I choose to do or even contemplate, I always take things under advisement before I do it. And that advisement keeps me prudent in my actions so I don't overreach or move to the wrong position or step too big or anything like that. So avvisamento, all things taken under advisement. And the symbol that the lynx is holding is the compass. And we can see him holding it right there above the crown. It's also telling that the lynx is on the crown. This is above our head. This is something that we always are aware of, always taking care of. And the compass is a navigation tool. That navigation tool we can use to measure how far one island is from another island, or how far one town is from another town. And if we know how far it is, we know how much area we can traverse in an hour. We see the same thing in modern maps today. Down at the bottom of the map, you have a scale that shows 1 inch equals 10 miles, or whatever the measurement happens to be for that map. If I take my compass and I set it to 1 inch, and then I move it along the map, I see that it's 5 inches, therefore it's 50 miles. I know that if I drive at 50 miles an hour, it'll take me 1 hour to get there. If I know that I can walk 10 miles a day, I know that's going to take me 5 days to get there. So the compass gives us that information. And the reason it's on our lynx is holding it is, as the master says, no creature sees better than the lynx, and it always understands and measures. There's a difference between looking and seeing. To look is to observe, to see is to understand. And that's exactly what the master is saying here with his lynx. No creature sees better than the lynx and always understands. So I always take into advisement how far is the movement required to do an action. How far is the movement my opponent takes? Let me say that differently. How far is my opponent going to need to move in order to get to me or to a target? So if John and I start here, and he's in woman's guard, and I'm in woman's guard, we're on, and we're on the same path, so it takes us the same amount of time. Now he's moved to woman's guard on the left. I'm here. When I come forward, he's actually slightly ahead of me because that shoulder's slightly forward, so he's closer to me. It takes less time for him to get to the target. And this is important things to understand because every guard has a certain amount of distance required to get from that posta, that guard position, to the target, whether it's his body or his sword for me to defend myself. So the amount of distance required is going to cost time because time is distance. One of my favorite examples of this is if I throw a punch and I hit John there, how fast was I moving? It looks pretty slow because I'm not going really fast, but I'm really moving hundreds of thousands of kilometers per hour because we're on a giant rock hurtling through space. So speed is an illusion. Truth is distance. If John and I have a car race from Santa Clara, California, to San Francisco, California, he gets a Maserati and I get a Volkswagen Bug. And there's no traffic, no police, nothing to stop us. And we start here in Santa Clara at the school and race to San Francisco. The Maserati is going to win every single time because it goes faster. However, if we have that same race, I have a Bug, he has a Maserati, but he starts in Los Angeles. I'm going to win because I have less distance to travel, even though he has a much faster vehicle than me. So understand that speed is not as important as distance. And the Lynx always understands and measures. So in my fight, I want him to have to travel further than I do. That means I don't need to be faster than him. I just need to move a shorter distance than he does. And this is very important. If I'm tired, if I'm scared, if I'm injured, I need to be able to position myself in such a way that I just don't need to move as far as he does. And that will make me faster than him, even though my speed is an illusion because I'm just not traveling as far. But the Lynx also says, no creature sees better than the Lynx. So I need to understand the amount of distance I need to travel. That's going to dictate the guard, the posta I take. I need to understand the amount of distance my opponent needs to travel because I can see his guard. But I also need to be aware of where's the sun? What's the terrain like underneath my feet? Is he taller or shorter than me? What kind of weapon does he have? Is he right-handed or left-handed? Is it a one-handed or a two-handed weapon? Does he have any obvious injuries like a limp or anything that I can see and potentially take advantage of? But also, which way is the wind blowing? Because if I'm fighting John on sandy terrain and the wind is blowing sand into my face, I'm at a distinct disadvantage. So I want to see things around me. This will advise me in the movements and the guards I want to take, and it'll allow me to be prudent on how and when I move. So the Lynx holding the compass gives us all that information. From the Lynx, I want to go down the illustration and I want to look at the elephant. The elephant is under the master's feet. The word that goes with the elephant is fortezza in the Italian. In the Latin, Pisani Dasi, it's fortitudo. So we have forteza or fortitudo, which means strength. And the words that go with it are, the elephant carries a castle as cargo and does not go to its knees or lose footing. Before I go any further, I want to thank Brian Stokes for this translation. This is because of his work, his research, and his context that I have this translation. So I want to pass that on for thank you, Brian. The elephant is carrying a tower. Now, I've been doing research into the medieval bestiary, and some interesting things have come up. We get the word elephant from the Greek word for that animal. They called it because it resembled a mountain. And the Greek word that they used is elephio for mountain. So this elephio is where we get the word elephant. Julius Caesar mentioned that elephants didn't have knees in his book, Gallic Wars. And that's why they can't lay down. That's also how they were captured. But some of the other interesting things that I came across was Cassiodorus in 485 to 585 current era. He says about the elephant that it pays to good princes an homage which it refuses to tyrants, which is very interesting from getting the idea of the elephant is that's the support that we are on. We are paying homage to good princes. Cassiodorus also says, it always walks cautiously, mindful of that fatal fall into the hunter's pit, for this beast has a wonderfully long memory, both of injury and of kindness. So I think that memory is important in this Marshall manuscript for our footwork. And there's more, and I can go into more if people are interested, but I want to talk about the illustration. I'll put a link into that bestiary as well into the description. So the elephant in this illustration has no knees. They also thought that there were no joints in the foot, which is why it walked the way it did. And so that gave it kind of cat's feet appearance in a lot of the medieval artwork. So if we take that and we think about the elephant carrying a castle, the castle on its back represents your spine. A castle that leans tips over. They also thought historically that because elephants did not have knees, they had to sleep standing up. So what they would do is they would lean against a tree, and that's how they'd go to sleep. So hunters, to get the elephants that were very popular for warfare, would saw partially through the tree so that when the elephant leaned against it, it fell over, and because it had no joints in its legs, it couldn't get up. And that's how people would capture elephants for warfare or also for medicinal purposes, because their blood and their tusks were thought to have powers against serpents. The arch enemy of the elephant was the dragon, the serpent. So they fall down and they can't get up. Or the tower is my spine, it needs to be upright. A tower that starts to lean over falls down. They have to keep working on the Leaning Tower of Pisa. But if we take that to our spine, what that means is if I'm fighting John and I'm fighting him this way and he throws an attack, the first thing I need to do to get out of the way of his attack is hit neutral, then I can go back. That's my Lynx. How much time did I create to my defense? So if I'm here, go ahead and do that attack. Cool. I hit neutral, I'm still in range before I can even think about getting out of range. It just takes me too long because I need to get back to neutral because my tower is not upright. If I'm leaning back because I'm trying to protect my face, I'm scared, I'm overly prudent, before I can throw an attack, I need to hit neutral, then I can throw an attack, which means this return to neutral is his time to see me coming in. So I'm in here, I hit neutral, and now I'm also leaning forward because not only was my energy all going that way, he helped me and he pulled me forward and disrupted my tower. Let's do that again. So I'm here, don't move. I'm at a distance, and I know that because I've got Lynx. So I hit neutral and I come forward, but now he guides me out. He didn't stop me and he actually pulled me a little bit forward. So my tower started here, hit neutral, and then leaned forward. And now that secondary comes out, and how am I going to get out of the way before he can hit me? Whether it's with his hands, with a knife, with a sword, with a spear, with a poleaxe, doesn't matter because my tower was not upright. Question I like to ask people about the tower. Is the tower offensive? The castle tower, is it offensive or defensive? People's common answer to that question is, it's defensive. And I disagree. The tower is an offensive tool of war. You build a tower on contested land that you want to control. I go into somebody else's land. I say, this is now my land. I build a castle. I now have a place that I can launch attacks from and return to so they can't retaliate. If we take that to be our spine, that means I am upright. I have a place to launch an attack from, and then when he counters, I can recover into my to my defensive position. So let's do that again. So give me a backhand with that one. So I launch my attack, he gives me a backhand, and I'm able to protect myself. There's my transfer because my castle is upright, and then I can sally forth to launch my counterattack.
And there is also where we can see the sieging of your adversary's castle in that area. My spine as well in that movement. So when that happens there, right? Now, his tower is straight and tall and strong. My tower leans.
And
he has now shortened time with his Lynx for his next attack, while he's increased mine because I now have no form and I cannot defend well from a broken tower.
So the tower is very aggressive. We saw the same thing in Korea, Vietnam, Afghanistan, Iraq. You go into another country and you create a forward operating base, a fort. It's a place to launch attacks from, but maintain your safety in somebody else's land. It's an important thing to remember about the castle. It's highly aggressive, but not stupidly aggressive. Because if I'm stupidly aggressive, I've lost my Lynx. I have no advisement and no prudence. So then the castle is sitting on the elephant. And the elephant, as stated in the old manuscripts, they believed had no knees. Although I will say that in my research, I did come across Bartholomeus Angelicus from the 13th century. He says, elephants be best in chivalry when they be tame, for they bear towers of tree and throw down sheltrons, the defensive devices, and overrun men at arms. And that is wonderful, for they dread not men of arms ranged in battle. The elephant is strength, fortitude. What I like to go into when I'm talking about the elephant in my discussions with the Segno with students, is an elephant fast? And the common answer is no. But because we've all seen elephants walking along throughout the prairies or wherever we may see them. But an elephant, a bull elephant at charge can run up to 26 miles an hour. So it's not that elephants are slow, but if you were 3 tons and barefoot, you would know where you place your feet all the time as well. But when you're enraged and you're charging, you're gonna go hard and you're gonna go fast. What I take that to mean is that, like an elephant, I need to always know where I'm placing my feet. So I have the Lynx that allows me to understand and see my terrain around me and the distance from my adversary to me. The elephant allows me to always know where I'm putting my foot so I don't fall down, so I don't go to my knees, so I'm able to make another move after this one. It's not that I'm slow, it's that I'm strong in my footwork. I can be fast. And then if they have cat's feet, as we see in some of the illustrations, the cat's feet are very agile. So we have the strength of footwork like an elephant, but the agility of our footwork like a cat. So I'm not just planting my foot, because as soon as I plant my foot, I've just given up time. So if John is doing a good step, he can do 2 steps quickly, 1, 2, because he has the strength of footwork without throwing himself off balance, and his tower stays upright all the time. But if he has planted his foot when he steps, you can see his shoulders move. Do it again. So you can see his shoulders bob. His castle tower is moving. And he's given up time. So do 2 agile steps, John. Now go back again. Don't slam your foot, but plant yourself and do 2 steps. See his tower move? That's going to affect his time, his Lynx. If I have a good Lynx and I can see that he's moving in this way, I can therefore take advantage of it. Now, instead of moving his shoulders forward and backwards because he's planting his feet, he was overusing his knees and he was going down and up. This is a common thing that we see in Renaissance and medieval combative sports, in that, like when you lunge, when people lunge, often their shoulders will dip because they're not maintaining that line and their elephant is suffering for it. So the elephant, thank you, sir.
Very welcome.
The elephant is the strength of our spine, the strength of our footwork, the agility of our footwork, and we don't go down, we don't lose our footing. This system in Fior is meant to work one-on-one. We have where the master has documented duels that his students have been in, but it's also meant for the battlefield. And if I take John to the ground in a perfect textbook way, and I take him right to the ground, but I go with him, how can I see his buddy coming up behind me with something, with an axe or something to hit me? I lose what's going on around me because as I go down, this is all I can see, and I can't see anything else going on around me. So going to your knees in a multiple opponent situation is really dangerous because you can't see anything. You'll get stomped in the head. We see this going on today on the streets. If John is down here and he's ground and pound hitting somebody, how's he going to see that guy's buddy coming up behind with his baseball bat or his brick? Right? This is why it becomes so dangerous. So like the elephant, we don't go to our knees. Do you have something you want to say, John?
So here, I can't see anything from this point right here, and this point, you can see my hand right here. So I've lost.
So if I'm with you,
entire,
go ahead and get ground and pound.
Yeah.
No, so you're down, grounded. Tell me, okay, just hold your head there. Don't even move. Tell me when you can see me.
Now.
I'm already past him. Why would I go this far to hit him? Stay there. If I'm on this side, tell me when you can see me.
Now.
I'm still not going to come up in line with that shoulder to hit him. I'm going to hit him from right here. So how's he going to see me? Now go ahead and stand up. Tell me when you can see me.
Now.
You can see me?
Yep.
So I'm behind him. I'm not directly behind him, but I'm to the side. So if I'm coming in at this side, tell me when you can see me.
Sure. Now. I can see your left arm.
Okay, extend your hand at me. We can't even touch. We're still 5 inches away from touching at full arm length. Now, thank you. Now, because he had that good elephant that allowed him to maintain his tower and stay upright, he has Lynx. So they support each other and they counter each other. We're going to do tiger and lion on Tuesday. I want to thank you very much for watching this. I hope you find this helpful. And I look forward to doing more on the Segno with the tiger and the lion next week. Until we are able to get together again, stay safe, stay sane. We're almost out of this. Thank you again. Have a wonderful day, and we'll see you on the other side of this.
Take care, everybody.